We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries with one abstention. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Brings us to 8.1 under the heading of finances, improve the county's financial health and economic profile. It's a resolution for increased transportation revenue. Lyndon.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As you know, our legislators are coming up with lots of bills this session, and there's a number of them related to transportation revenue. And we've been asked by AMC, each board has been asked to consider adopting a resolution of support for adequate funding of the Minnesota transportation system. So you have a draft resolution before you that AMC gave us to consider. And I'd have to say it's relatively general. There's a lot of balls in the air still at the legislature on transportation revenue. But they are looking at a number of things, as you know. A couple of those that are of interest to us, of course, are the wheelage fee or wheelage tax, as it's known. That's currently 5 cents per vehicle. We talked about the proposed half-cents transit sales tax. There's also some other items out there for Greater Minnesota, based on their ability to do a half-cent sales tax. Currently is required by referendum. There's a proposal that the county board adopted only. So there's a lot of things going on, and but AMC wants kind of a unified presence from the counties, just supporting that revenues, increased transportation revenues, important to Minnesota. So there's a couple statistics in your packet under the resolution that shows the impact of transportation related to our economy. Transportation-related jobs put over $2.8 billion in the pockets of Minnesotans every year, and generated almost $195 million in income tax revenue in 2011. We all know that investments in transportation mean jobs. FHWA has recently come out with a statistic saying that every $1 billion invested in highway construction results in about 27,800 jobs. So it's a significant amount of jobs that are generated in our industry. So with that, Mr. Chair, I just open it up for discussion or questions that you might have. But the request to you is to consider passing the resolution that encourages the legislature and governor to sign a bill that brings adequate funding to Minnesota statewide transportation systems.
Sounds great. I will open it up. I just had one clarification. You mentioned the wheelage tax is how much?
Right now it's 5 cents per vehicle.
5 cents?
$5.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I was going to say.
Yeah, 5 cents wouldn't get us a lot.
No, it would not. So
we get about $330,000 a year generated from the wheelage tax, and we use that right now for debt service on some previous bonds.
So we don't want to mislead anyone. It's
yeah,
$5.
That's true. Very good. If I could, Mr. Chair, there is a slight mistake in the resolution that I got from AMC. They corrected me this morning. Where it talks about the needs in transportation and transit, it talks about exceeds $2.5 billion per year. That number is actually $4 billion a year in needs, and there's about 1.8 to 2 billion in revenue. So, excuse me, a little update there.
Sounds great. Any questions? Commissioner Workman.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have a hard time supporting this. I mean, it's on its face. We always, large part of what we do at the county is related to roads. There's no doubt about it. The problem right now for us to lend our name to this resolution is all the other myriad of taxes that are unfortunately probably going to happen at the state capitol. And I guess what I'll find myself doing by supporting this is piling on. I'm thinking only of our constituents. we're gonna tax the rich probably this year, creating a fourth high income tax bracket that's going to hit Carver County residents particularly hard. Metro counties, sales tax increases, as we've talked about for transit before. You just about can't list all the taxes and increases. Your license fees are going up. Gas tax and everything else. And while, again, I really understand why we might want to do this to secure better funding for ourselves, it does eventually come out of our taxpayers' pocket. If you don't look at the whole picture, I think this can make sense. But the whole picture says we're in big trouble with increased taxes in this state the next year or the next 6-7 weeks when the legislature gets out, and I guess I'm not going to look at just this. If we take them all individually, they're all brilliant ideas for more revenue. As a whole, however, I find it probably unsustainable.
Any other discussion? Is there any possibility to lay this over to, and I guess I'm looking to Mr. Hemsey to lay this over and bring it back at a later time?
Well, you can certainly do that, Mr. Chair, or date specific, or just say bring it back upon request. I think it'd be good to have Lyndon clarify the origin of this resolution's AMC, correct?
Yes.
Can you give a little bit more background on that?
That's all the background I've got. They've sent out a request to all 87 counties to consider the same type of resolution, just general support of transportation revenue, basically statewide. So it's kind of a unified support. They are, of course, one of their founding principles is that on transportation is they're definitely a believer in balance between transit and roads. That's clear. They're not skewed one way or the other. So we just got a simple request to try to support every county to support adequate funding for transportation. It's as simple as that. I don't have any more information other than that.
And Mr. Chair, if I could add, I was on vacation last week, or I would have followed up on this more, because in terms of the generality of it is very general. It does go against the grain of our legislative strategy, but it's certainly up to you in terms of whether you want to do this or not. It's pretty watered down, though. And if you want to talk more specific, which we may be talking more specifically about, changes to wheelage tax and sales tax, and as it specifically relates to us, I think that would be probably a better discussion to have as the legislature starts honing in on various topics related to transportation.
Any other, Commissioner Malushnik?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wouldn't be in favor of laying this over. I think it's a relatively simple matter, easy to understand. I may point out that in no way does this resolution ask for more taxes. It says adopt a resolution supporting adequate funding for Minnesota's transportation system, which has been grossly underfunded for many, many, many years. It's a matter of public safety. It's the greatest enemy of our free enterprise system is an inadequate transportation infrastructure. You have to get the products to market or the market to the product, one way or the other. And I can't say how strongly that not trying to build roads or the other infrastructure that might be needed in a certain area is a great way to invite other forms of government rather than a free enterprise system. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Degler?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I agree. This is such a, well, I agree with what the question is. This is really a vanilla resolution, but what are we really getting at? The word adequate funding, we can find two different people that means different things to different people. And when you say, okay, I support adequate funding, it leads to the next question: how do you get it, and where do you get it? Because we all know there's only so much funding available. I agree with some of the points in the resolution, the fact that it provides jobs. Well, the same thing can be said on a lot of other industries also. But like I say, I'm not real gung-ho on it's pretty generic. I'd like to see more specifics. Hey, what are we actually dealing with? Just to lay it out there, I don't think it's actually going to provide much. You're not going to convince anybody just because we have a resolution saying adequate. I don't think that's going to do any good anyway. So,
Commissioner Maluchnik.
Mr. Chairman, this resolution is asking that all 87 counties pass a resolution saying adequate funding, not saying raising taxes. Adequate funding is pretty easy to interpret. All our jobs, all 5 of us, is public safety on our roads. And there are some roads in Carver County, and Lyndon, you can, I hate to put you on the spot, but you could probably name a few, and bridges that are not probably in the best interest of the safety of our families, and certainly not in the best interest of the folks that haul freight on our roads. This is a matter, this is our #1 job, and getting twisted up with mere words because there's people out there that get a little wild and crazy when you start talking about funding things. It's kind of ridiculous. This is our job, and we need to do this, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner Ishii.
Sitting on the AMC board, I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner Maluchnik. I think this is simply an effort to try to provide a resolution from every county in this state to provide adequate funding. It's just simply saying, I hope you can provide funding for all the roads, and there's lots of roads need lots of repairs. We all know they've been put on the back burner, so to speak, in lack of money. Time is really no different because I don't think we do quite as much overlay as we have in the past. Hopefully we'll get back to that, and I think that's the intention here. But our roads, and a lot of roads in this state, get a heck of a lot of use. And if you drive Highway 5 like I do many times, you see that some of those roads are in dire need of some serious help very soon, or it's going to be extraordinarily costly to try to catch up and fix some of those. So I'm going to support this because I think, again, and Commissioner Workman and Commissioner Deguer's comments, yeah, they're right on. It's what they're saying is exactly right, but I don't think that this resolution necessarily points to that. And finally, Mr. Chair, on a personal note, at 60 years of age, I'm wondering when I'm going to be concerned about being taxed in the highest tax bracket. I've got an awful long way to go to get there, I think. So.
Any other, Commissioner Workman?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, it's pretty, I think pretty clear with this resolution. If the resolution says we're $2.5 billion per year exceed. So we need $2.5 billion more per year than we're currently taking in revenue to meet our so-called needs. Now, Mr. Robgent said that's closer to $4 billion. We're in really big trouble. So the legislature is talking about $3 billion in new taxes this year before you even talk about this. So the legislature, like this county board, has to make decisions on its priorities. So if we were to catch up this year in our transportation funding, I guess it would be a $7 billion increase at the state capitol. So again, the resolution is being very clear. It's saying you're way behind in your transportation funding, and a couple of ways you can possibly make up that huge mountain of deficit is through a wheelage tax and local option sales taxes. So it's promoting the idea that we need more taxes. I don't know how it could be less clear than that. And again, back to priorities. We're spending billions. Maybe part of that billions is simply on the Metro light rail system that's envisioned. 17 rail lines. We've had the discussion before. The Southwest LRT line estimated today or a year or two ago at about $1.5 billion. Picking everything to do isn't picking. or creating priorities. If you're going to do everything, then you're right, we're going to need more taxes. And so this resolution is saying, well, state of Minnesota, you're not really helping to take care of us in Carver County, so we're going to have to take care of ourselves somehow. And that's by increasing potentially the tab fees. Again, I was at the legislature when the very popular Governor Ventura reduced the tab fees. It might not have been the smartest thing to do in the world, but if you had a pretty new, larger, expensive vehicle and you were getting a $600, $700, $800 bill in the mail from the state of Minnesota to pay your tab fees, it was a very popular idea. It shifted how we fund roads. And so maybe the government created their own spending problems. But again, I can't support this narrow line of a tax increase when I see a plethora of tax increases that are going to be coming, and from the state of Minnesota by the time June rolls around. So I guess I'm going to encourage people to vote no, or let's rehash this thing. We can say we've got transportation needs here in Carver County, and we can discuss how to fund them, and maybe by our own priorities. But I guess I'm just not going to support a resolution that promotes a tax increase. So.
Sounds good. A quick question before I go to Commissioner Maluchnik. I just wanted to ask the question, is there support to lay it over, to rehash it, or do we want to vote on it today? I think Commissioner Maluchnik is very clear. He wants to vote on it today.
Vote on it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we vote on it.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
We have a motion, and that motion was to vote on this resolution, was the vote that we vote on it today. It's not for the resolution, it's the vote that we vote on it today.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that.
Clarification, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
You're actually voting to adopt your resolution?
No, we're voting.
You're not
You're voting to vote on it?
Yep.
Voting to vote on it today.
voting
Okay.
to vote.
We're either going to vote or lay it over. Discussion on this.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think laying it over would obviously, if there are questions, which obviously there are questions that we, I think, could come up with more definitive answers to by laying it over. But if we want to vote for it, doesn't make any difference.
And just so I'm clear, that was the motion, correct? That we made the motion that we vote, that we go forward with it?
Yes,
Or did
Mr.
you-
Chairman, I made a motion that we go ahead and vote on it today.
Okay.
Are you ready for, did you ask for a discussion on that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that that was clear, that's what your motion was, and it was not for the resolution itself.
I can't, I understand wanting to hash it over, but I have a little problem with the sincerity of that, and greatest respect for my colleagues. Sometimes we hash things over as a tool for obstructionism. Other times we're trying to look for a duck and cover. This doesn't say to raise taxes. As a matter of fact, I would rather they find the tax money somewhere else. Is that realistic? I don't know. The other reason is, and Commissioner Workman made a good point, this gives us the tools to do it locally. And folks, we're not the legislature. We respond to the people here locally. And again, I've said this a million times, and maybe one short of a million times. But the government closest to the people is more responsible to the people. And this gives us the tools to do that if we want to do it, and we may choose not to do it. This board has chosen not to use some of these tools in the past. So to anyway suggest that somehow we're tax and spend liberals because we want to fix roads, well, I'll just let the folks out there decide what that sounds like. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
Commissioner Workman.
Mr. Chairman, then I'm confused about what this resolution is telling the taxpayers of Carver County if we approve it today. If it's not about finding or increasing new revenues, then I'm at a loss for what it really is saying. And I'm for all of those things that Commissioner Maluchnik said about we can do a good job. This board has proven they can do a good job. The problem is we can, if we had it within our ability just to raise the tab fee on our local constituents, $15 to 20, that would be the end of the story, and maybe we'd have that discussion. The problem is after the legislature's out, all the other taxes are going to rain down on us. So while we just want to make sure that we're local government and doing our job, and what about the other big picture? I'd love to be able to operate in that world where I don't have to look at the rest of the picture, tax picture to our constituents. But every tax has a constituency. And many of those are going to be passed at the state legislature this year. So from Watertown to Chanhassen to San Francisco Township, the taxes are going up. Do we want to say, well, we're oblivious to that? But I'm not sure who I ask then, Mr. Chairman. Let's give it to Mr. Robjan. What does this resolution say? Because I think we're at a disagreement about what the resolution actually says if we approve it.
Any other discussion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, maybe Mr. Metz would give us a legal definition of this resolution, telling us if the word increase isn't in there, increased taxes, or if we're, we have to do our job here. If the legislators don't do their job and maintain the line on taxes, maybe the people out there ought to reconsider other folks when it's election time. But, this county board has held the line on taxes, and in fact, some county boards are jealous of the way we've done that. But, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Mr. Metz, what does this motion mean?
If we could, I'd like to go to Lyndon first. Did you have a comment? And then we'll go over to Mr. Metz, because you had your hand up first.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think I agree that it's very general, the resolution. Of course, every county board will have a different opinion about transportation revenue, and I think they've tried to mold this resolution so that it fits with everybody, so they can get as many counties behind the general principle that transportation funding is important and that we're falling behind and we should do something about that. There aren't any specifics in here of new revenue sources and how those should be allocated. I do think it tries to say that counties are more and more relying on the property tax to fund transportation instead of traditional sources. That's quite clear. It also says, I think, quite clearly that it's up to the counties to decide when it comes to that to implement any new fees or tax. I think that's clear in here too. But other than that, it is general. My personal opinion is our road system, I think we do a very good job of keeping up with it, and we do a good job of expanding it. But our comp plan shows we have $800 million worth of needs on the county system the next 20 years and about $300 million in revenue. So we've got a gap there. We're trying to address that with prioritizing the system. But I think the fundamental flaw that we have is the Highway 5s, Commissioner Ishii mentioned, the 212s, the 41s. These roads are really, really behind. And will this make those roads better? Not instantly, but the more pressure that's put on the county to put our funding into those roads, the less we're going to have to put on our own system. Eventually that will become a problem. And that's the way it's going. Unfortunately, those main routes in our county are not getting the attention they deserve. And eventually the county residents are the ones that will have to pay the bill to try to help fix them. And that's not necessarily the right solution if it's not even under our jurisdiction. So the needs are definitely out there. I'd say that the county road system is pretty good. But as development comes in, of course, the system will get bigger, traffic will get worse, there'll be more congestion, safety issues will be apparent, and we'll be addressed with the same issue ourselves. But I think we have a very good plan of that, good plan of attack. The big issue is more these regional systems that are falling behind. And eventually that becomes a consequence of us. So yes, it's very general, and I think that's the intent. It's just I think they want to be a unified force. AMC does when they testify at the Capitol that they've got the counties behind them when it comes to transportation. But they know that realistically, any increase in transportation funding is going to be a fraction of what's required. But they're just trying to get something done. So that's just my 2 cents worth, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Maluchnik, did you have a specific question for Mr. Metz? So we just
I'd
wanna-
like Mr. Metz to tell us what this motion means. Can we address Commissioner Workman's concern? Does it suggest increase in taxes, or could you help us out? Or maybe you don't want to, I don't know.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Maluchnik, it wouldn't be my purview to try to interpret what it means, but I think it is what it says. And the last line indicates that if you adopt this resolution, you're, as you indicate, very generally asking this Board of Commissioners to encourage the legislator to pass and the governor to sign a bill that brings adequate funding to Minnesota's statewide transportation system. It's for the board, and I would defer to you of what adequate funding is. You certainly could clarify this and be more specific in defining that if you wanted to hold over, or you could vote with this resolution.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Metz, thank you. How about the word if? Can we work on that one? If we don't know what adequate is, can we talk about if? Can you help me out with that one, or do we still have concerns there? Mr. Chairman, I think I don't want to beleaguer this. If I call a question so we can vote on my motion, and then maybe we don't have to deal anymore with this. So we'll see how it goes, okay?
I had a comment here, but we can do that.
I don't have a comment. I was simply going to ask Mr. Chair that you would address the motion before us and call the question that we are going to vote if we're going to vote.
Okay,
We've seen this before, so it's a bit unique.
That's a new one. Very creative.
I'm trying to follow along, and I heard a motion that I wanted to vote on this today, and that was the motion. I did not motion so I wanted to be very specific on it. Are we going to vote on this? And I guess the motion is, are we going to vote on this today, or are we going to lay this over?
Right, we're going to, Mr. Chairman, if you will, the motion was to vote on this today, and we're really adopting some of the rules that Congress has, and it's terribly frightening to me.
Okay, and then a motion a second. Any discussion? Discussion that I had is that the word adequate and the needs of $2.5 million in adequate funding to Minnesota statewide transportation system. I wanted answers to that before I voted on this. So I am going to vote no. I wanted to lay this over.
Yeah, if you're looking for more discussion, Mr. Chairman, I think that we're opening ourselves up to just a myriad of other resolutions, because we recognize public safety this morning and we recognize public health. When are those groups going to provide a resolution for us recommending that we bring adequate funding to public safety and to public health? I think this is it's such a watered down resolution. It happens to be the first one before us. I think we'd be better off laying it over and waiting to another day.
Sounds good. I will call the question at that. Motion is in favor of voting on this today. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
I think you got backwards.
Voting on this today.
The motion
Okay.
was, Mr. Chairman?
Voting on this today. I voted, it was a 4-to-1 vote on that motion. I voted 4-to-2. Commissioner, myself and Degler, we wanted to lay this over. So now we are voting on this today. And
We need a motion first of all.
yes, we need a resolution. And so now we're very clear. We're voting on this resolution. We need either up or down.
Yeah, we need a motion first.